Hello and welcome to Born to Speak to You TV. I'm your host, Calvin Gibbs, and we have a great episode for you today. Today's episode is called Truth in Print: Why Representation Matters. My guests today are Amy Rath and Don Rosso of Unsung Voices Book Publishing. We're going to dive into it and have a great conversation, and right after this message.
Of Brooklyn, where stories grow wild, to the glow of the stage where the dream meets the child. A quiet flame, a hidden spark, drawn to the words that lit up the dark. Curtains rose and so did he, finding power in poetry. One voice, one mic, one sacred truth. Every word he spoke uncaged the youth. He saw the world try to silence the bold, but his soul was wired to break the mold.
And we are back. This is Born to Speak to You TV. I'm your host, Calvin Gibbs, and tonight's episode again is called Truth in Print: Why Representation Matters. My guests today are Amy Rath and Don Rosso of Unsung Voices Books, and I just want to welcome all of our viewers to Born to Speak to You TV, the show where we speak life into the moments that matter. And today we're talking about truth in print and why representation matters. Stories are how we understand the world, how we see ourselves, how we connect with one another. But far too long ago, people's stories were never told, or worse, they were told for them instead of by them. Underrepresented voices, whether from marginalized communities, forgotten neighborhoods, or overlooked generations, they carry wisdom, they carry pain, they carry humor and resilience that enriches our collective story. But when they are silenced, the world loses a piece of its truth. You know, I first learned this through a training that I did. A couple years ago. I had the opportunity to speak to a group of first generation college students, young people who had never been invited to share what it felt like to be the first in their families to break cycles and redefine success. They spoke about imposter syndrome, cultural pressures, and they spoke about hope. After that episode aired, listeners wrote in telling me that they felt that they had finally been seen. And that's when it hit me. And it hit me hard. Giving someone a microphone or a stage to tell their truth can change not just their lives, but the lives of anyone that hears their story. And that's exactly what my guests today are doing. Joining me today are two people who are making a powerful impact in the world of publishing: Amy Rath and Don Rosso, the founders of Unsung Voices Book Publishing. Their company is dedicated to amplifying the stories of historically marginalized and underrepresented voices, the authors whose truths deserve to be told, heard, read, and remembered. Amy and Don believe that nonfiction storytelling is not just about recording history, it's about reclaiming it. So, help me welcome to Born to Speak to You. This is Amy Rath and Don Rosso. This is Calvin Gibbs, and this is the segment we like to call Born to Rise. I'd rather have an enemy who admits they hate me instead of a friend who secretly puts me down. Yes, I would rather have somebody that says, Calvin, I do not like you, because I know where that person's coming from. They're being honest. They're being truthful. I know which category to put them in. But when you have a friend who secretly puts you down behind your back, say they got your back when they're talking to you, facing you, and then secretly behind your back, they're talking about you, they're laughing at you, they're hoping you don't be successful. Now, give me the enemy. Give me the enemy any day that admits that they hate my guts instead of a friend, or what I perceive to be a friend, who secretly puts me down. That's your tip for today. This is Born to Rise, and I'm Calvin Gibbs. This is Born to Speak to You TV.
From the streets of Brooklyn, where stories grow wild, to the glow of the stage where the dream meets the child. A quiet flame, a hidden spark, drawn to the words that lit up the dark.
And we are back. This is Born to Speak to You TV. I'm your host, Calvin Gibbs. And as you can see on the screen with me are my guests for today. I'm going to reintroduce them because they're making a powerful impact in the world of publishing. Amy Rath and Don Rosso, the founders of Unsung Voices Book Publishing. Welcome, guys.
Thank you so much.
And just to reiterate, their company is dedicated to amplifying the voices of historically marginalized and underrepresented voices, the authors whose truths deserve to be heard, read, and remembered. Okay, and I have had the pleasure of knowing both of them for a couple years now, and I fell in love with the theory behind Unsung Voices books. I believe in your mission. And it's a pleasure and an honor to have you guys on the show with me today. So let's jump right into it. As I like to say, I like it in the deep end. That's where all the fun is, in the deep end. So let's jump right into it. What inspired the creation of Unsung Voices books? Was there a particular story or moment that made you say, yes, we got to do this? And either one of you can answer.
I will go first, and then Don can certainly fill in as well. So we have known each other for a lot of years, Don and I have. And sorry, my dog just decided to join this as well. So if you see a fuzzy nose pop up, that's what's going on. We've known each other for a lot of years and both really believe, we love to read, we love to write, we love everything about books. And we both really felt like, if there was kind of sort of one thing we could do in the world, what would it be? And that would be to amplify voices whose stories don't get told as often, exactly like you were saying. After sort of kicking the idea around for a little bit, going, this is crazy, we're like, you know what, life is short, why not just jump in and do it? And we've taken it from there. Don, what did I miss?
Really, it was an interesting moment of kismet. Amy has a long background working with small companies and helping them with development. I have a long background working in book publishing. And so we started talking about this, realized that we bring two very different skill sets to the table, but they're two skill sets that are really complementary. And as Amy mentioned, we're both pretty passionate about making sure that there are a diversity of voices out there and, just kind of using the skills that we've developed to help those voices get heard, as you've suggested earlier, in their own terms, not letting somebody else be in charge of telling their stories for them.
Sounds good. Now, publishing can be a gate-kept word. So I looked that term up to make sure I'm using it.
You are using it. Yep.
So what challenges have you guys faced in trying to open those gates for underrepresented authors? Because I know it's got to be some challenges.
There is a lot. So really there's three main forms of publishing, and we focus on traditional publishing, which is where you work with a publishing house, and they put up all of the costs to edit the books, to make sure the books are printed, often design the books. And that is probably the most gate-kept of the paths to publishing. There's also self-publishing, and then there's sort of this thing in between the two, a middle ground that's called hybrid. In traditional publishing, you've got your big publishing houses like Random House, Penguin, those industries. And the costs are not small. And that's everything from the paper, from binding the books, from shipping the books, to distributing the books. So I would say, and Don, you can absolutely chime in with your thoughts as well, but cost is one really significant factor where if you are talking about a smaller press, 500 copies, even, just 50 copies, and sometimes some of our runs are small like that, at least to start. Really, when you're competing with outfits that are publishing thousands, tens of thousands of books, cost can be a big prohibitor. So that's why we really believe that our job is to help defray those costs and to help navigate a system that is pretty opaque, because you don't really see a lot of workshops by the big publishers helping people break into this industry. So I know I named a few things, but Don, you've been in this industry, so I know you've got a lot of thoughts to share.
Yeah, as far as gatekeeping, really one of the biggest problems with the book publishing landscape is that it is dominated by a small number of companies. In our business, we have a big five, capital B, capital F, that account for about 85% or so of the books that you see on the shelves at your average bookstore. Now, obviously, those companies are so large and they're all publicly traded. They have to be able to make money. And so the books that they choose to publish are books that are going to appeal to the widest range of readers. But that means that some of these voices that we're talking about, marginalized communities in the United States, smaller international communities, aren't going to make those minimum runs that they're looking at in order to appease their shareholders and appease their higher ups. So what we try to do is look at those, say this is a story worth telling. And as Amy suggested, even if they have to be very small print runs, we're going to get those out there, and we're more in a position to do that because we don't have those financial pressures coming down on us from up top.
Okay. Don, as I was listening to you, I was thinking to myself, it really sucks that, and I understand business is about making money. I get it. I'm all for it. But it really hurts when people's opportunities to tell their stories can't be done, can't be printed because of money. Those stories are just as valuable to somebody as the stories that they run to print that's all over, different bigger bookstores and things like that. The underrepresented people's stories could be more impactful, more meaningful, have more depth to it than some of the stuff that the bigger publishers run to give contracts and put out. And that really sucks. On another episode, I'll dive deeper into that. I'm going to save that because it just came to me. But I want to ask you all, and I'll ask this question to you, Don, and then Amy, you can chime in. Don, how do you ensure that authenticity when helping authors tell their stories come from personal or cultural trauma?
That's a great question. And there's always, in any publishing endeavor, no matter what kind of book you're publishing, there's an inherent trust between the author and the publisher. You both have to trust each other that you have the book's best interest at heart. So there's a certain, there's a certain amount of looking at the story and making sure that it sounds authentic, but also getting to know the person behind it. Making sure that you have a good rapport with this person, that not only does the story read well and read like something that somebody else is going to relate to, but that you also have that connection and that relationship. I'm a big fan in both my day job as well as Unsung Voices. To businesses are built on relationships. Anybody who says it's just business, it's not personal, is kidding themselves. And so, yeah, I think that's a big part of it, is that personal relationship.
Okay, I love that. I love that. Amy, anything you want to add to that?
I think Don summed that up really, really well. I think it is making sure that we present ourselves as authentic and that we assure the author that we are in this business because we want to tell their story. We love books. And while we might make suggestions, recommendations, edits, it is in the best interest of the book, not necessarily in watering anything down or creating something that they do not genuinely believe is their story.
Okay, sounds great. I know that a family member had an experience with one of the bigger book publishers, and it was really a bad experience where even from customer service, couldn't get good data, good information to them. As far as editing that should have been done, it wasn't done correctly. If the person wrote in an email, take out this and put in this, using those words, then that's what actually showed up in the book.
Oh.
Yes. And it was just a horrible experience. Not being able to speak to someone when you needed to speak to them. There was no personal connection. And that's what I love personally about Unsung Voices books. I'm going to go ahead and say it. The person is my wife, who just published her third book through you guys a couple months ago, and it was a totally different experience for her. She felt like she was taken care of. She felt like she had somebody that was listening to her, that did exactly what she asked or made great suggestions to her. It wasn't a rush to, send me your money and, we'll do everything else for you. And then they don't do it. So on behalf of my family, I just want to say to you guys, you took very good care of her, and she's very happy with the end result.
Okay.
Amy, can you share a success story, a moment when you realized that giving a platform to an author really made a difference?
All of them is honestly going to be hard for me
Good
to
answer. Good answer.
Yeah, to pick just one. And we are so fortunate that in a lot of conversations, we'll be talking with somebody who maybe has held a story inside of them, wanting to tell it, but just has not found sort of that trusted partner yet. And our initial conversations with authors is always, we will answer any question. We're going to tell you about ourselves. We want you to decide whether we are the best fit for you. And, no high pressure or anything like that. And it's such a absolute privilege. And I'm going to probably get teary-eyed when you see those authors say, they sort of like take this breath and go, okay, this is what I want to say. And it might be their own personal journey, or it might be in memory of somebody who really inspired them, who has passed on. But you can just see that it is something that they have had inside of them, in some cases for decades, and they're trusting us with that information before, we talk about the mechanics of writing or due dates or contracts or any of that. yeah, genuinely everyone, but that moment is something that I view as really successful, because if there's something that I set out to do, it was let me be that gateway in order to get this thing that's inside of you out into the world.
Okay, sounds great. Sounds great. Now, for a lighthearted question, some humor, I've realized that I can't always ask the hard-hitting questions, but be honest, what's harder? What's actually harder, editing someone's deeply personal memoir or trying to explain uh, to your family, let's say, what a publisher actually does?
Oh, that's a good question.
No, I think that's an easy one. I think that's a very easy one.
Go ahead.
And it's the former. As far as explaining what publishing is and what we do and what kind of services we provide, I've been doing that for 25 years. I've got that speech nailed. But as far as taking somebody's individual story that I personally have no ownership over, I have, as you know, Amy used the word privilege, which is exactly the correct word, that I'm being trusted to bring this story into the world. And to make sure that as I'm cleaning up language, as I'm making this story accessible to a wider audience, to make sure I don't lose any of what that is. I'm not inserting my own voice where it doesn't belong. Every editor works with that. That's what we do. But that is a much more thoughtful, intense, difficult process, hands down.
Okay.
I would agree. I would agree with that, particularly with some of the first time or newer authors where you also want to give some coaching and trying to walk that line of firm but gentle, where, you know, again, you sort of want to make sure that that book is accessible, but you're trusting to hold on to their voice. And if they ever want to write another book down the road, hoping to impart some knowledge where if you ever decide to do this again, here are some things that might make that journey a little bit easier for you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for that. I know that you mentioned earlier that some of the bigger publishing houses require money down, a certain amount of money down, and it's all about the money up front and things like that. Have you ever come across people that are a bit skeptical because that's not the model that you use?
Yes.
Skeptical is the right word. I think that since a lot of the authors we work with are first-time authors or inexperienced authors who aren't quite as familiar with the overall publishing landscape and how the industry works, I think that a lot of them have experience in sort of the self-publishing space. And so they assume that that's how it all works. And I have to say, just to give a little bit of clarification, when I'm talking about those big five publishers, they don't work in that model. They actually work in a similar model to what we're doing, in that they will actually, in many cases, for more established, desirable authors, they will get into bidding wars where they are putting money out in order to get these books. That's not our space, but that's not our space. You know, we're working with smaller. The whole point of our endeavor is that we want people who the larger publishers are ignoring. And as such, it's a little bit of a different game, but we're still playing by the big boys' rules. And that is just, it's mostly something that people aren't as familiar with, rather than they're skeptical about it, because it's easily explained. And it shows the fact that we don't make a dime until those books are sold. People love that because it shows that we have an investment and a commitment to these books, in addition to the authors. We're not going to just take their money and then throw out whatever we can as fast as we can.
Okay, and thank you for explaining that. Now I can say that probably was a poor choice of words, and I know why. So thank you for that. You know, one thing that my wife has been doing since coming into contact with you guys and starting to write her manuscript and things like that, is she's been telling other family members that they need to tell their story. Um, yeah, she's very passionate about that. She has an entire, she did a couple speeches on it as well about why it's important for you to tell your own story. And we see this in the current administration in the government, where some stories are being repealed or uh, disappearing and things
Right.
like that. That's why it's so important for people to tell their own stories. Do you find that some of the authors that you've worked with are more willing to share that information with others?
And some are more willing to share, and then some are less willing. Is that your question?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, but I would also say often by the time they're talking to us, they've made the decision to share their story. Although there are some times where someone will, oh, I have two things. One is a little bit too personal, so I'm not ready to share that yet. I would say often it's sort of the opposite, where most people have sort of had this inside them for a while and are just happy to have come across an outlet. Donna, I mean, that's broad strokes, maybe not everyone, but I feel like that is more the trend. But what would you say?
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head. You know, a lot of people, everybody has a story is the thing. And the question is really, we have several authors where we've approached them saying, hey, are you interested in this? And they knew they had a story, but they hadn't really considered how they would put it out there. And we've presented ourselves as simply facilitators. You know, we're not there to tell you how to write your book. But we want to help you do that. And that's been a big step. And so I think many of our authors have seen us as kind of a gateway to getting that story out there. And they're grateful for that and will tell others. And as we publish more books, the goal is that people do have, as you suggested with your wife, a positive experience working with us. And that will lead them to say to whether it's family members, colleagues in a professional writing community, what have you, that, hey, these guys are legit. They're great to work with. If you want it to tell a similar story, they're the ones you should go to.
Fantastic. Now, a different type of question. If an aspiring author or someone that wants to tell their story and just don't know where to start writing their story, how do you help this person realize or formulate what they should be doing?
Can I use your advice? This is Don's advice, but it is so good that I've made it my own. Table of contents. Start there. If you start with, this is what I want to tell. So some sort of mission statement overall, like some sort, I want to tell the story of my life. I want to talk about my childhood. I want to talk about my great-grand, like whatever that is. And then, so a book is different than other forms of writing. You might have had a blog. A book is different. You might have written articles. You might have written speeches, short stories. A book is a very different creature. So do your table of contents. Do the arc of the story. Here's where we're starting. Here's what we're going to. Here's where we're ending. Think about how all of these tie together. And that, I mean, that is the number one. Once you have that in place, then you can start filling in. Okay. How'd I do, Don? I love that. And you were right. I mean, you were like so right. That is what you do. You do the skeleton first and then sort of fill it in.
Man, that is a golden nugget that I'm going to take with me for sure. For sure. Because I've been trying to get my story out there as a professional speaker. You know, you have to have something out there to sell in the back of the room. And I'm going to use that nugget right there. Thank you, Don, for that. We're going to take a little break right here. This is Born to Speak to You TV. We'll be right back in 1 minute. This is Calvin Gibbs with Born to Speak to You TV, and here's your Born to Rise tips. Sometimes the best things you can do is not think, not wonder, not imagine, don't obsess. Just breathe and have faith that everything will work out for the best. Oftentimes we make ourselves sick, worrying, obsessing, having anxiety about what's going to be. Just have faith that everything is going to come out okay. And usually it does. The things that you're worrying about have no merit in your life. They're there to confuse you, to make you feel weak, to make you feel inadequate. So the best thing you can do is don't worry about it. Don't think about it. Don't wonder about it. Don't obsess over it. Just have faith that everything will work out for the best.
From the streets of Brooklyn, where stories grow wild, to the glow of the stage where the dream meets the child. A quiet flame, a hidden spark, drawn to the words that lit up the dark.
And we are back. This is Born to Speak to You TV. I'm your host, Calvin Gibbs, and tonight our episode is called Truth in Print, Why Representation Matters. We're having a great conversation with Don Rosso and Amy Rath of Unsung Voices Book Publishing. So guys, I know that there's a lot of changes going on in this country. We talked about it a little earlier, where some of the popular books, the children's books, even things we grew up with, suddenly have become unsafe for the population at large. Have this thinking have it encouraged people to come to you, to seek you guys out about telling their story? Have you seen any change in that area?
I would say that we've had some folks reach out as we've published more books, as our, as we've gotten to be a little bit more known in the industry, I think through word of mouth. It's been sort of impressive when we've had folks respond to us. And so I do think that there is a bit of an air of defiance about it and wanting to be authentic. Don, I know we've got a book that isn't quite in pre-order yet, but it's specifically about activism. Do you want to give a quick teaser on that one?
Yeah, it's a book that we're going to have available very soon, and it basically tells the story of an American who was mildly politically active, the sort of guy who during a presidential election might donate and might, knock on a few doors the day before for his candidate, and how the first Trump presidency really motivated him to become a much more involved activist, and telling the story of how anybody can do the work that he did and why it matters. Why it's important for all of us to do more than just donate a few dollars to make sure that our candidate gets elected. There's definitely been a few of our authors that I think have really been motivated. I don't know that we've seen a huge uptick, but I'm thinking in particular we have a book coming out probably in a couple years now. She's working on a manuscript about the life of a woman in rural Kenya. Mm-hmm. And I think the idea that those sorts of stories, it's almost more immediate that those stories need to get out, because so much is getting suppressed right now. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of immediacy. And another example that I'll give is the book that we've got coming out. I don't want to say next because we've got a whole lot coming out very soon, but it's a book on the history of various hot button news topics in China, and looking at it from the perspective of the history and literature of China itself, not necessarily how these things relate to an American audience, but looking at the Chinese themselves and why these things are important and have happened the way they did. And the subtitle of the book is The History That Beijing Does Not Want You to Read. And I was at first a little hesitant about such a provocative subtitle as it painting a target on our back. And the author was able to convince me that if we're doing this, we've got to do it. We've got to have the courage to put it out there. And he is, run the stories that he's telling run counter to the official narratives of Chinese history that the Chinese Communist Party is putting out there. And we need to make people aware of that's not the only way to interpret these stories. There is a lot more going on that they aren't telling you. And so I think that's the courage is really what came out of that for me. Both that and the activism book that I'm talking about is that it does take courage in this day and age to put these out there. There are going to be people that are, not going to be in favor of these stories coming out, but that we can't let that stop us, and we can't let that stop our authors from putting their voices out there.
That is correct. I applaud you for going forward. I actually went to your website and I saw that book about the Chinese culture. I've studied a lot of Chinese culture, their ancient histories, and their rulers, and I have a lot of Asian friends, and I've always been enthralled with how things were and how it is now. Some people think that it's a better place than it was 50 years ago. Other people would definitely challenge that type of thinking. So I can't wait for that book to come out. I definitely want to thumb through that one as well. And thank you for having the courage to go forward with it. Now, a lighter question for both of you, because you got to have some fun, right? If your publishing house were a person, what kind of personality would it have? The bold truth teller, the wise old storyteller, or the friend who always says, "You're not going to believe what happened next"? If your publishing house had a personality, what would it be? The bold truth teller, the wise old storyteller, or the friend who always says, "You are not going to believe what happened next"?
All right. I have an answer.
So do I, and I want to hear yours first.
What's your answer, Don? You want to hear me first? I would say the third one.
Okay, the friend who always says.
The friend who always says, "You are not going to believe what happened next," who just gets very excited about the story and keeps it going. So,
okay,
what'd you say?
That's my answer as well. And a big part of that is the other two are people who are telling the stories, and that's not what we're doing. Yeah. We are the friend who is telling the other story, the other person's story as they experienced it. So I think we can't emphasize that enough. We're taking the back seat to the person who experienced it directly.
Okay, can I interject with something? Sorry, I just need to interject. So what you just saw was something Don and I discovered when we started working together. There is a lot where we were on the same page. And I think that's part of what makes the business successful, is that even though we've got two very different skill sets and approaches, we both see the mission sort of the same way. And so I was wondering if we were going to have the same answer. I think that, not that we don't have our disagreements, but I think at the heart of things, we're both kind of steering the boat in the same direction.
Yep.
Well, that's always a very good thing when you're going in the same direction. You can get there a lot faster.
I hope so.
So the next question, what is the funniest or most surprising story idea that you've ever received from an aspiring author? You guys got to have some good stories.
The funniest or most surprising is?
Yes, story idea that you ever received from an aspiring author.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's a tough one because we tend to publish pretty serious nonfiction.
Right.
The people that come to us, you used the word trauma earlier. There's that kind of stuff. These are pretty heavy topics that we work with. I'll put a little bit of spin and not answer the question directly. I will say that some of the funniest stories that we've encountered were definitely in the very first book we published. And which the first book we published, which is called Tales of Kohler Hollow. It's the oral history of an African-American family in rural Appalachian, Virginia. And she tells the story of her family going back 5 generations, living in the same place on the same homestead. And what makes these stories so powerful is that they're we keep using this word, but it's the best word, authentic. They are real people. She doesn't candy coat them. She doesn't make them into, heroes without flaws. And because of that, you get some stories. And I mean, some of them will make you absolutely reach for a box of tissue, but some of them you will laugh out loud because every family's got those characters, right? And she sure found them and was able to express them through her stories. So definitely that book made me laugh more than once.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, agreed.
Right. Sounds good. Now, in a world filled with social media, hot takes, how do books, talking about real reflective type of reading, help people slow down and really listen?
I truly believe that the more that we understand each other, the better the world is, which is why we focus on very readable nonfiction. So sometimes when you say nonfiction, people think, oh, an economics book or, something dry. Our books read as if they are novels, or we've gotten the feedback many times. It's like it's a movie. It's like I'm watching a movie, but I'm reading something that's real. I think by bridging that gap of taking the voices that you don't hear enough, putting it in a longer form. So a book, nothing against other forms of writing, but this is, a book where you can sit down and making it very, very readable, where you want to go back and pick it up and you won't believe what happened next. I think that engages people, gets them to learn about the world around them, kind of gets them to meet some new folks, make some new friends by having that sort of very enjoyable book on their bookshelf or their nightstand or in their car or wherever it is they keep it.
Okay. Sounds good. Sometimes I worry that books, and I grew up with books. I love books. I worked in libraries in New York City. That was my after-school job, sometimes my summer job, because it was nice and cool in the library. So I didn't want to be hot, But I'm afraid that books might someday go the route of the 8-track and cassettes. And that makes me sad. What do you guys think about that? That will people stop reading as much?
Not at all.
I see both heads shaking no.
Absolutely not. I mean, I think that it's important to know that people read. A lot of people associate a book with, a physical bound hunk of paper that they flip through the pages of. I mean, people read all the time. Anybody who's on the internet, anybody who's picking up a newspaper, I mean, well, I don't know who reads newspapers anymore, but anybody who goes to, CNN's website or the New York Times website or what have you, they're reading. They're reading words on it. Just because they're on a screen and not on a printed page doesn't mean they're not reading. So I think that the role of books, of long form writing, is exactly what Amy said. If you have a good story to tell and it's told well, you're going to grab people and they're going to want more of it. And that's the key to everything. It's not about the medium. It's about the content. It's about what they're actually reading. And, just to riff a little bit off of what your last question, what Amy answered, when you talk about social media and you talk about the internet age, a lot of what gets lost is nuance, is everything has to be broken down into sound bites or headlines. And then people just scroll through the headlines and move on to the next. What long form reading gives you is the chance to fill in that nuance. But you've got to grab people. You've got to give them a reason to want to dive in and to dig in and to get more. And that's where the story comes in, is you draw people in with a great story. They're going to want to continue and they're going to get the nuance as they read more.
Okay.
That's not going away.
No, agreed.
Not going away. Well, I'm very glad for that. You mentioned newspapers. Over the weekend, I went to a gas station to pay inside, and I saw the periodical stand had the Chicago Tribune on it, and I noticed that there was like 5 newspapers in it. Later on that evening, I went back to the same store, and there was 3 of those same papers still there after, 6-7 hours. And it made me feel like, well, I guess we do a lot of reading news online these days on our phones. So that's okay. But yeah, I would really be sad if books have been my friend, my information, taking me to far, strange lands, far galaxies, far, far away. It would be so sad if that wasn't available. But I want to flip the questioning, because you guys recently got some kind of award, didn't you?
We did, yes.
Tell us.
So it's the there's an Independent Book Publishers Association, which is primarily in North America, but there's other countries involved as well. And so it is particularly indie publishing, so not one of the big 5 outfits. And our very first book, which is published in June of 2024, Juneteenth of 2024, is Tales of Kohler Holler, as Don already talked about. And we were nominated for Best First Book, which is a combination of a lot of things that have to come together. You have to be a brand new publisher. It has to be like the very first book that you put out there. So it has to be a good story. And we were in the nonfiction category. So we traveled to the awards, and we're sitting at a table, and literally everyone else at the table won. And we were the last award of the night. And we were up against some incredible other books that absolutely incredible. And so, these people win and these people win and these people win. And like I say, we are the very last award of the night. And I'm going, guys, I'm sorry, we're going to break your streak. But we won.
All right.
And I think our speech was basically both of us standing there going, we can't believe we won. Wow. Thank you so much. We're so honored to tell this. So yeah, we won gold for Best New Book Nonfiction through the IBPA.
All right. Well, congratulations on that. I did see the some pictures on social media, and I made a note at that point to, if I ever had the opportunity, to bring it up and hear the rest of the story. So thank you so much for sharing. We're going to take a little break right here. And when we come back, we will conclude this episode with Amy Rath and Don Rosso. This is This is Born. to Speak to You TV. We'll be right back in 60 seconds. I'm Calvin Gibbs. This is Born to Speak to You TV. And here is the segment we like to call Born to Rise. I often get asked, how do I get motivated? What motivates me? Well, I want to let you know that your biggest source of motivation are your own thoughts. So think big. The bigger you think, the more you can motivate yourself, not only to win, but to help somebody else, to make your dreams turn into goals, turn into success. So the biggest source of motivation is right up here. Your own thoughts. Own them, embrace them, love them because they're yours, and motivate yourself.
From the streets of Brooklyn, where stories grow wild, to the glow of the stage where the dream meets the child. A quiet flame, a hidden spark, drawn to the words that lit up the dark.
And we are back. This is Born to Speak to You TV. I'm Calvin Gibbs, and today's episode, Truth in Print, Why Representation Matters. What a great conversation I've had with Amy Rath and Don Rosso of Unsung Voices Book Publishing. Guys, for those that want to connect with you, collaborate, and even publish their own Unsung Voices books, how can they reach you?
Our contact information is on our website, and I know it's a long one, but it's just the name of our publishing house, so unsungvoicesbooks.com. Our direct email is there. There's a general email box. We are on social media, so we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn. Just if you keyword search for that, if you Google search for that, we should come up. And we would absolutely love to hear from folks. Would love to have a conversation with you. Yeah, we really, really hope folks reach out and buy books, because there are a lot of books already for sale, and we would love to help share those stories.
All right, great. That's what I was going to ask you for the last question for viewers that may be watching right now and thinking, I have a story to tell, but who would want to hear it? What advice would you give them?
Don, you take it. Go ahead. Yep.
Do it. Get it out there. It's there. Nobody in this world is completely alone and unique. Everybody connects with everybody else, and there's going to be somebody who's going to read that story and see themselves in it. And the more you can do to give that voice a wider audience, the more you're going to find those people that are going to make a difference.
All right. And you can see the QR code in the corner of the screen. That will take you right to Unsung Voices Books Publishing website. So Don, Amy, thank you for sharing your mission with us and your passion for stories that matter. Talk to you guys later. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And I'm Calvin Gibbs. This is Born to Speak to You TV. What a great conversation I've had today with Amy Rath and Don Rosso from Unsung Voices books. This episode, Truth in Print, Why Representation Matters. Representation matters because we have to tell our story. We cannot let anyone else tell our culture, tell our stories, tell our religion, tell our family secrets. We must do this ourselves, not only for ourselves, but for future generations to come. And as we say here on Born to Speak to You TV, we need to do it because we need to speak life into the moments that matter. So many stories are not going to be told. And I want to thank DFN Broadcast Studios for this opportunity to present this show. The QR code in the top left of your screen there will take you to the Born to Speak to You social media page. There you can consult with me. You can send me comments about the show, the episode. You can like it, not like it. Tell me what you would like to see, or perhaps you would like to be a guest. Again, the QR code is up at the top, and the motto of Born to Speak to You TV is speak life into the moments that matter, and I will see you at the very next episode. Thank you for tuning in.
Of Brooklyn, where stories grow wild, to the glow of the stage where the dream meets the child. A quiet flame, a hidden spark, drawn to the words that lit up the dark. Curtains rose and so did he, finding power in poetry. One voice, one mic, one sacred truth. Every word he spoke uncaged the youth. He saw the world try to silence the bold, but his soul was wired to break the mold. Now he walks in purpose, pure and true. He was born to speak to you. He's got that rhythm in his truth, that fire in his flow. Speaking life into the moment, watch it grow. Every phrase